Hey guys, Miss Hendry here. I definitely miss you guys and I can't wait to get back, but we're going to keep going just like we had before. All right, so this is My Furthest Back Person by Alex Haley. You should have already read some of it, so we're just going to talk about it. All right, so just a little bit of background. Have you ever been to an auction? Many people go to auctions to buy cattle, antiques, or paintings. This is a place where people bring their stuff and they sell it. But there was a time in the US that people used to sell other people at auctions. The practice of selling humans into slavery was commonplace in the Americas for nearly 400 years. Most of the people auctioned off were from the African continent. Between 1450 to 1860, 12 million people, 12 million, that's a lot, guys, were shipped over to America and sold into slavery. And so, getting into this story, how many generations can you go back? Now, that's a weird question. But your furthest back person is the most distant relative that you can identify in your family. So most of us, the most furthest back person that we've actually met is our great great grandmother. Now, some of you may have a different story, or you may have never even met your great great grandmother. But the furthest back person is the person that you either have met or that you know of. It could even be somebody that you haven't ever met, but you just know of them. Like you know that this was your great, 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 great grandfather or great, 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 great grandmother. All right. So the title of this story gives us a clue as to what was important to the author. Finding out about his ancestors and finding himself. All right. So our lesson focus, this story is an autobiography. And an autobiography is a story about a person's life when written by that person. An autobiography is supposed to be true. Nonfiction, autobiography is usually nonfiction as well. And it usually describes events, ideas, thoughts, and actions as they actually unfold. And so the writer in this story will use words like I or me to describe things taking place. And this is what we call the first person voice. Usually when we write an autobiography, it is going to be in first person. All right. So as you are reading, make notes about the setting, characters, rise to action, climax, and resolution. Think about the plot. Although this story is nonfiction, it has all of the plot elements. And so looking at page 122, our first character introduced here is the author himself, Alex Haley. Alex is walking past the National Archives building and thinks of stories that his grandmother told him. He starts taking a trip down memory lane. As he walks inside, an attendant asks him if he needs help. And so here we see conflict. He is demonstrating internal and external conflict here because internally he is conflicted about expressing his desire to see the records. But externally, he is faced with the fact that he has to look into public records to get information. So I think he was maybe a little bit embarrassed. He didn't know what he would find out, and he really didn't want everyone to know his business. So he begins to look through some old microfilms and search for his family members. He starts to see names in the census and is astonished. After a few trips, he begins to uncover some great facts about his family. We're also introduced to Cousin George. He reminisces about Grandma and then encourages Alex to keep digging into his past. He sees the Rosetta Stone and wonders if he can also figure out his native tongue. Now, this is interesting. All right, so this is the Rosetta Stone. Some of you may have actually heard of Rosetta Stone, whereas you might have heard about this actual monument, or you might have heard of the program Rosetta Stone, which is a program that people use to learn a certain language. And so this stone was found on July 19th, 1799, near the town of Rosetta, Egypt. It contained markings that proved to be the dialect of early ancient civilizations. And so I want to try to pull up a model of the Rosetta Stone, and it's going to take me to a different site real quick. So just bear with me. All right. So let's look at this. Waiting, waiting, waiting. All right, here we go. Let's look. Any day now. All right. Okay, so this is actually a cool 3D model of the Rosetta Stone. So I'm going to zoom in so that you can see the writings. So this is the stone that was found, and these are the writings that they say were an early dialect. All right, so this is, as you can see, I'm flipping this around. I don't know if there was any inscriptions on the back, but this is what it looks like. It's literally just a rock that someone found. But this is the cool side because it's got, I mean, the whole thing is covered in an old ancient dialect. So you can see those markings. Super cool. So he saw this Rosetta Stone and realized that it was just a very cool tool that the archaeologists found. And so, anyways, very cool. So I wanted to show you guys that. So let's go back here. And let me put this in present mode again. All right, here we go. All right. So Alex remembered sounds that his grandma used to make that were supposedly parts of their native tongue. He went to the United Nations headquarters in New York City and would ask Africans if they recognized the sounds he makes. So he would go to that United Nations headquarters, and this is a place where different people from around different countries in the world work so that they can all work together with the United States to kind of keep everything unified. And so he would talk to the representatives that were at this headquarters, and he would talk to the Africans, and he would ask them if they recognized sounds that he made. And so eventually, Alex was put in contact with Dr. Jan Vancina, I'm sorry. This man studied in African villages for years, which is really cool. I've always wanted to do missionary work in Africa. All right, and so that's a picture of him in real life. He lived in the villages and studied their oral language. And so Alex flies to Wisconsin to meet with Dr. Vancina. And Alex shares the stories from his grandmother, and Dr. Vancina Dr. Vancina recognized some of the gibberish that his grandma used to speak. So Alex used to remember hearing his grandma make different noises and say different things, but he always laughed it off as if she was just speaking gibberish. And so he tells him, Dr. Vancina tells him that these sounds sound like the tongue of Mandinka. And he did not recognize that phrase or name. And so Alex shares that his grandma used to use the word co for banjo and bolong for the Virginia River. And so Dr. Vancina then confirms that the language that she spoke was in fact Mandinka. And he tells him that the word kora is an old word for a stringed instrument, and the words bolong cambi was a phrase for the Gambia River. Super cool. All right, so we're going to stop right there. I hope that you guys are being sweet and kind to your sub. And I hope that you guys are making good choices. I love you guys. I miss you, and I will see you soon.